Hey there, friends. It's Jack down here at Backcountry Wine Tasting Room. And I just wanted to give you a few updates about March Madness. So, in front of me are the 16 wines that we'll be tasting this Friday, February 13th. These 16 wines represent the last crop of the round of 64. So, once we taste these, we will have tasted all 64 of the Pinots that will be in the bracket this year. And then we'll, once we have winners from this round, then we'll move on the following Friday to the round of 32, where we will start tasting winners of the first round against each other. This video, I'm going to show you what we've got coming up for this Friday, and of course try to entice you into coming down to the wine bar to taste this Friday. But I'm also going to give you some of the results and some of the takeaways that we had from last week. We'll try to not make this a 20-minute video, but this will be a little bit long form. So, real quick, coming up this Friday, we'll be tasting the Thomas Pinot Noir, the Dundee Hills Estate. This is a very rare, sought-after, sort of cult-followed label. Soder, their flagship MSR, or Mineral Springs Ranch Pinot Noir. The Double Zero, a very popular, very hot on the market, and very hot among the critics. Wine that gets a lot of big points every year. The Double Zero VGR, which stands for Very Good Red. Here's an interesting one. This one's called Caballou, and it is it's a wine from Isabelle Duttard and Veronique Drouin, two French ladies who each have their own very illustrious wine careers going on in the valley, and then they came together as friends to do this, and they're making it. I mean, this is like I believe this is about $150 bottle of wine, so really excited to taste that and see how it stacks up. We have the absolute most expensive bottle of the bracket here under Antica Terra, the Botanica. Christum, this is their Eileen Vineyard Pinot Noir. Of course, the Eileen is one of the block designates from their estate vineyard in the Eola Amity Hills. We have Shea. This is their block 23 from their Yamhill Carlton Estate Vineyard. Brooks gave me their Cahiers Pinot Noir. I guess it's a cuvee of all of the vineyards on the hillside that their tasting room sits on. And this is an interesting one. Violin. We got the Bracken Vineyard Pinot Noir from Violin. You might recall that the winner of March Madness last year was Perkins Harder, and Shelby Perkins. That's her estate vineyard, the Bracken Vineyard. So same fruit in this bottle as the wine that won last year, only made by a different winemaker. Cocktails. This is from the Etzel brothers, the sons of Mike Etzel at Beaufrere. This is their Sequitur Vineyard Pinot Noir. We've got the Evesham Wood, the Cortel Rose Vineyard, a relatively young vineyard from Jessica Cortel in the Eola Amity Hills. We've got the J.C. Summers, the Abbey Ridge Vineyard, old vines from the Dundee Hills. I love the crow on the label here. Aubaine. This is from the Anahata Vineyard, Eola Amity Hills. Now we've got the La Source, the flagship wine from Evening Land, sourced, of course, from their estate, Seven Springs Vineyard. This is an exciting one. Tasted this the other day. Beautiful wine from Hazelfern. This is one of their first bottlings from their own estate vineyard, which they're calling the Hazelfern Vineyard naturally. Right up there in the Chehalem Mountains. And then we've got J.K. Carrier, the Antoinette. That's the name he gives to his Temperance Hill vineyard bottling. So real old vines, high elevation, and volcanic soil in the Eola Amity Hills. So like I said, very, very strong crop this week. Should be lots of fun to taste. Just wanted to kind of go over some of the results from last week and some of our impressions, just to keep you up to date, because last time I did a long video to describe all of this, we had just finished the halfway point. So just want to keep you up to date with what we've been tasting. So last week we started off with McKinley versus Ponzi. The McKinley won. That was an interesting matchup because the McKinley was less than half the price of the Ponzi. McKinley $45, Ponzi $115, and the McKinley won with 12 votes to 10. It was a nice light, very fruity and flower-driven wine. Same was true of the Big Table Farm, their Palo Sandberg vineyard, which was the runner-up last year. And that won over Suzor, the Beezy vineyard, 13-9. I think the Big Table Farm, again, has a lot of really attractive qualities that might take it far into the bracket this year. We were really surprised by the DuPont. So DuPont versus Archery Summit. I put those two against each other because they're literally right next to each other on Archery Summit Road in the Dundee Hills. They're neighbors. And again, the DuPont less than half the price of the Archery Summit. So the DuPont comes in at $70, and the Archery Summit Arcus Vineyard is $150 a bottle. And the DuPont won 13-9, so won it handily. Just another indicator. Another thing that I wanted to mention is that we had 3 wines in the $100 or more category last week, and all 3 of them fell. So just tells you something. Price does not equal enjoyability factor. Now, that doesn't mean that they're lesser wines or they're inferior wines. It might just mean that they are built to age and just are not showing their true colors, their true, potential yet. Could be, we'll see, only time will tell. But for now, those cuvées that are half the price are beating those 3-digit bottles pretty easily. Resonance versus Sokol Blosser. That was a pretty significant margin of victory there, 14-8 for Resonance. The Resonance was a really nice wine. I think it's gonna do well. I think it's probably gonna at least get into the Sweet 16. That's my prediction. We'll see. Speaking of predictions, I want you all to know that after we know the winners of these matchups, the ones that I just showed you that we're going to taste this Friday, I will be able to reformat the bracket in such a way that you'll see what all the 32 round 2 wines are and what their matchups are. And I'm going to print out a stack of empty brackets and have folks come into the wine bar, whether it's during the week leading up to next Friday's tasting, or if you just attend next Friday's tasting when we start the round 32, come in and grab one of those empty blank brackets and fill out your predictions, and we'll have a prize for whoever can get the most points. There'll be for every one that you get right in the round of 32, there'll be a point. There's a whole formula for how to do this, right? Then you get 2 points for every one you get right in the Sweet 16, 3 points in the Elite Eight, 4 points in the Final Four, and if you choose if you correctly predict the champion, that's 5 points. So we'll collect everyone's predictions before we taste next Friday. And whoever gets the most points with their, the accuracy of their predictions will get a little prize from us. So look out for that. The next pair up was Flaneur versus Islay. Both were beautiful wines. The Islay was actually my wine of the night. I loved that wine. I really, the thing about that wine for me was that it was both beautiful right now, but also clearly stacked for the future. Like it's going to age very nicely. And I hope some of you will check that out. The Islay 2023 Violet for $65. Just an absolutely stunning wine and totally worthy of the 8 and 10 year cellar. But nevertheless, Flaneur with their La Belle Promenade was the victor in that matchup. It was a beautiful wine, identically priced at $65. The final vote was 12-10, so it wasn't overwhelming or anything. People liked both wines. It's just that the Flaneur was a little bit more well received. Next up, we have the matchup that was our biggest margin of victory. Well, actually, no, I take that back. There's one that was bigger. I'll get to that in a minute. But a pretty big margin of victory here. Domaine Drouhin over Martin Woods, 15-7. The Drouhin was their Lorraine at $80. The Martin Woods was their Highland Vineyard at $75. Evan at Martin Woods, he recommended that I use a different cuvee, the Jesse James Vineyard Pinot Noir, and I was like, oh no, the Highland is so distinct, it's so beautiful. I really do love the Martin Woods Highland Vineyard. So I shot him down, and I was like, no, we got to do the Highland. And now I'm not saying I regret it, but I'm just wondering if things would have been different if I had followed Evan's advice there. And I'll just say, if Evan has an opinion of what wine should go into the bracket next year, I'll listen to it. And I thought the Highland Vineyard was beautiful, but it was a very light wine. It was very elegant, very clear, see-through, almost like looked almost like a dark rosé more than a light red wine. And so the power and intensity of the Drouhin Lorraine, I think, just easily kind of bowled that over. Final vote of 15-7. Next up was a really hard one for me, and it seemed like it was a hard one for a lot of people tasting last Friday. It was Project M Filament Vineyard versus Abbott Claim Estate. And both wines had a lot of power, a lot of richness, a lot of juice, great structure, great length, very tasty finish. Both wines just knocking it out of the park. Very similarly priced, Project M at 60, Abbott Claim at 75. I personally voted for the Project M. The winner was Abbott Claim at 12-10. And a lot of people favorited those wines. We asked people to write down their favorite of the night, and Project M got 3 favorites of the night, and Abbott Claim got 2 favorites of the night. So 5 people, their favorite of the night was one of those 2 wines, which, is pretty notable. But congrats to Abbott Claim, and better luck next year to Project M. Another excellent wine. All right, and then finally, an interesting setup here: Rose and Arrow versus White Rose, and the Rose and Arrow had been up to this point definitely the most expensive wine in the bracket. $200 per bottle for the Rose and Arrow Gathered Stones Eola Amity Hills Pinot Noir. The White Rose was their Convivialists Pinot at $80 a bottle, and White Rose just annihilated. It was 16-6, so not even close. And I was among those who voted for the White Rose. I felt like the Rose and Arrow, I don't want to slander it too much because I really respect that label. I have had amazing wines from that label. This just wasn't one of them for me. The wine felt a little disjointed. There was a little bit of Brettanomyces in there, so it was kind of funky, mushroomy, barnyard, and not in a particularly pleasant way, not in an integrated way. It was just kind of sticking out there. So a lot of people commented on that. That was just kind of like a little question mark wine, and then to have it be the most expensive wine of the night was just, yeah, that was a curiosity. So, but not to say that there wasn't, something very special about the White Rose. There absolutely was. It wasn't just that, people didn't like the Rose and Arrow, that people truly did like the White Rose, including Connor, by the way, who had really disliked the White Rose that was in the bracket last year. And he was very vocal about it and was trying to talk me out of having White Rose in the bracket this year. And I was like, no, man, I tasted the new one and it's a lot better. So I'm glad we did. And that's a great wine. So yeah, that's how it broke down last week. And, hopefully this week we'll have some more interesting matchups and interesting storylines to share with you. But there's only one way to make sure it happens is for you to come down and join us. So I hope you'll come on down to the wine bar this Friday, February 13th from 5 to 7 is the perfect window to arrive. That way, you'll be finished up before we are closing down at about 9 o'clock. But another thing that, if I haven't mentioned this before, I say 5 o'clock start time because it's nice to have sort of a group feel, a group of folks who are all doing the same project at the same time. But the reality is the wines are already open as soon as we open the shop at noon. So if 5 p.m. is too late for you, or if you have plans at 5 or 6 o'clock, but you still want to do the flight, feel free to come in anytime after noon, after we open at noon, and we'll have you set up for a flight. All right. Thanks again. Hopefully see you soon, and take care. Well, I'll be back probably about this time next week with a wrap for the round of 32, and we'll start talking about what the round of 30. I'll have a wrap for the round of 64, and we'll start talking about what the round of 32 looks like. All right. Cheers, you guys. Take care.